There you go. Did you find any of the states that also required someone who had knowledge on trying to actually grow the marijuana plants?
That was usually incorporated in the merit-based system. When they were, for instance, New York would publish a rubric of items, and anyone that wants to apply submits their application along with a detailed statement of what research they've done and who's going to be involved in the facility to give that information. But that was, as I understood it, typically done on that level.
But those were, I'll say, items after kind of the minimum requirement. So
yes.
In other words, we would set a minimum requirement. In let's say we did the $2 million bond or payment or however we set that up. But then we would have, who do you have that has some kind of knowledge in growing it? Who do you have that maybe is good at security? Those kind of elements. And they could have those or not have those with their application. Is that kind of how the other ones were set up?
Right. So if you, I think most of them were simultaneous. You provide an application to where you're qualified on the bare minimum. And then you provided, and it was elective, you didn't have to, I guess, but you would provide really a very detailed description of how you plan to run the facility. And that would be the point and the section where you would describe what research you had done into the facility, what individuals you had that were going to help you to achieve that.
So the question would be, have you done research in growing medical marijuana? And they would check yes or no. And if they've done yes, then they would have a description within the application instead of the minimum requirement, or?
Typically it would be the few that I've seen that are done that way, there is a chart of questions of different, like what is your business plan, how do you plan to get operational, what is your financial wherewithal, what experience do you have conducting any kind of business, what experience do you have in the medical marijuana business. That could all be laid out by the commission, and then typically what states do is give you a certain allotted pages to describe to the commission how you have researched or what your plan is in that fashion, and that's typically turned in with the application. The idea being, in those states, they're minimally qualified, and then the commission or whoever does it in that state moves on to that merit criteria and can score. Usually they...
And that's usually not subjective, that's just meeting those minimum requirements.
It depends on how they're written, but yes.
Maybe like a checkbox.
Many of them give a score, a maximum score, and they can score you based on your plan and your different. It just depends on how the commission has it set up.
It seems like there's a few of those things that I've read, and I've done my own little survey. Let's put it that way. One of the other ones in your research, dealing with other highly regulated areas. I know that was a big one. Because there are some states that only let pharmacists actually have dispensaries because of that. They're only allowing people who can deal with the highly regulatedness of any industry. What were your experiences with that?
Some did require that question, especially when it came to dispensaries who were going to have to handle confidential patient information, making sure that they knew and understood the implication of having that personal confidential information that shouldn't be disclosed to other entities. There were some, that required, or didn't require, but really asked what experience you had with highly regulated industries, as you mentioned. That rubric can all be tailored. But yes, other states have put that in their rubric. And I could also, if it is helpful, perhaps print off some of the rubrics for the different states. The Michigan rubric.
I think that would be very helpful.
Yes. And they're typically